welcome to this mini course on reflection. It is winter right now, I'm wearing a sweater, it's cold outside, and the light is getting less and less and less. And traditionally, European cultures, being a bit further from the equator, have used daylight going less and less and less, and temperatures going colder and colder and colder, the harvest done too soon to plant. That period, the winter, we used to reflect, which is incredibly cool and healthy. And it's insane that we can actually do this, right? No animal can reflect. They cannot look into the past and improve. They cannot do like, what was that interaction with Jake and how do I improve it, right? That's really us. So today I want to teach you about how you can reflect to make sure that you keep growing at the maximum level. We will visit the past to get lessons from it, because that is what experience is. I would say that if you do not reflect, your experience is worth way less and sometimes even nothing. You will keep doing the same patterns and mistakes all over again. Let's break that and let's make sure you keep on growing at the highest possible rate. Now, how often should you do this? If you always live in the past, that is actually a recipe for depression. Depressed people either live too much in the past or too much in the future, or both. We don't want to do that, but you can revisit this. I'm setting this up for a deeper, longer reflection, so I'll give you a couple of tools you can use that are nice to do yearly, maybe even quarterly if you can make the time. But they're smaller reflections. The first questions I'll ask you, you can actually get a yield on that every day. So every week would also be useful. So what are those questions? Let's get to it. The basic incentive to really reflect is to take a moment, get out a piece of paper, please, because you want to write this down. Of course, you can use your computer as well, but write it down. It doesn't work the same if you do it in your head. And you start with the question, what went well? And then the next question is, what could have gone better? If you just do that, you will loop back and think through the period that you're reflecting on. Either that was the last day or the last year. It can both be done. You take the time to go over and ask what went well, what could have gone better. Then of course this should be followed up by an action, because otherwise there is no improvement. So I would always add a third question, which is, how do I improve this? Those three questions, let's apply them to work. My core audience are leaders across Europe, and you would want to reflect on work. But you can do the same in any situation. You can do the same asking about your health. You can do the same asking about your relationships. You can do it everywhere. But let's focus on work. What are the 3 levels that I recommend you do this for? I'll give them to you in reverse order, meaning the first, you have the most dependency on others. The second, you have a little less. And the third, you have no dependency on others. So the first level is reflecting on collaboration with your peers. If you're in a leadership team, or if you have colleagues with the same title, anyone that's on the same layer as you in the organization, you can reflect what went well, what could have gone better, and how do I improve this? You could see this as a bit of a retro, right? But in a retro, you usually do that as a team and you get each other's tickets. This is just you. I recommend you do this solo because you form your own perspective. Now, don't take that perspective to be the full truth, but a good reflection is you thinking on paper. And where retros hack this to actually make sure that teams reflect, I see sometimes it also means that individuals no longer properly reflect. You should think about, for example, what went well around time management, what went well around getting our goals, communication, all the big topics that are around in business, and take a good gander at what was good with your peers. Then you go to the next level. You ask the same questions, but for your team. So your team, what went well, what could have gone better, how do I improve this? Highly recommend doing it on paper. It's pretty good to time box it, because then you also know you're gonna do it. Don't make this too big. You don't spend hours and hours on it, because at one point it won't yield. But if you know, I can do this in 45 minutes, it will just be quicker. I recommend that you apply this as the following. As we go through these 3 questions, you just noted them down probably already. I recommend you pause right now and take 5 minutes each. That's it. And if you cannot do that now, then at least plan a 15-minute block, 30-minute block to do this. It doesn't need to be much longer. That will get you started. If you need more time, you will know. Yeah? Don't make it too big because then you'll never do it. Now, the third level. The first, you are not the boss. The second, you are the boss. The third, you are. So the third is you. How do you reflect on yourself? What did you do well? What could you have improved? And how can you change this? The fun thing is, because we get to influence everything there, it is useful to go a level deeper. So I will give you the following tool. All human behavior comes from our personal flavor, our subjective part, combined with trying to reach 6 generic, let's call them human needs or drivers. And I will give you the 6 human drivers model, but I will also tell you first how you get to your own personal values. Now, why is that important? Let's say I am a person that has adventure and safety as 2 of my values, right? But for me, adventure is at the top of my list, and safety security is like somewhere in the middle or maybe even lower end. Where someone else might have the same 2 values of the 20, by the way, I'm just giving 2 examples. But for them, safety is number 1, and having adventures is a value for them as well, but it's pretty low on their list. If you ask those 2 people with a different order of values, even if they have the same values, would you go and jump out of a plane with a parachute? You can already tell that there will be a difference. The one will say, hell yeah, and the second might say, no, that's scary. So it is very important to know your values, and there's a pretty easy way to get them. You can get your values, and let's focus on the values in work by asking a very solid question. The question is, in work, it is most important to me to feel or experience blank. You just finish that sentence. By the way, you could do the same for life or love or health, but since we are now focusing on work, I would say let's start with work. In work, it's most important to me to feel blank. When I didn't have feel and experience in the question, in work, it's most important to me too. You might fill in get money, right? That's not a value. So I'll use this as an example. People don't want the paper or number on their bank account. They want whatever that brings them. So they want to feel and experience something. That's why I added that in the question. They want to feel and experience that they are important because they make a lot of money. They want to feel and experience that they're putting in a lot of effort and they see that reflected in value. So I would want to challenge you, don't go for outputs, but make sure that you stay with values. And I tried my best to improve that by my first version of this I took from Tony Robbins, and he said, in work it's most important to me to blank. I will ask you to add, in work or life, it's most important to me to feel/experience blank. Now that will give you most of your values. If you want to do a double check, you can also do a fear-based one, a pain-based one, which is in work, it is most important to me to not feel/experience blank. You will get some opposites, so they will have a little less value, but you also maybe get 1 or 2 new ones. So I recommend that is something you do. Just try to get everything out that is important to you. Most people, I've done this exercise many times, get to around like 10, some get 14, some get just 6. So don't go for a list of 50, don't worry about it. But if you only have 2, you might still need to keep going. Now, they don't necessarily always come out in order. So I recommend you also don't push yourself to that. First get them out, and then give yourself a few minutes to order. Now, for those of you that are really my people that are going to implement this immediately, I love you for doing that. So let me give you the exact guideline. You can pause the video and go for this first question. In work, it's most important to me to feel/experience blank. You fill in that, you take 10 minutes. After that, when the timer goes off, you switch to, in work, it's most important to me to not feel/experience blank. And just in 2 minutes, you will see, are there any moving away stuff, values that I want to put on as well? Then Ordering it shouldn't take more than 6 minutes. So you just put another timer for 6 minutes and you'll have it done. After that, you have an ordered list of your values, which should give you a pretty good insight. The values usually don't change. There is a layer deeper, but I highly recommend doing that part with a coach. Because with a coach, you could also get one level deeper, which is in order to achieve those values, you have made rules for yourself. Funny thing is, we gather these rules throughout our life. We're kind of like fungi. Maybe people that read the book Entangled know this, but fungi, they just find a piece of that DNA lying around and they'll just try it. They just pick it up and that's how they get their DNA. It's really cool. It's very different from sexual reproduction that we know. That's how we pick up behavior and rules. So at one point we'll be like, oh, I got rewarded for this rule. I'll just take this. And a lot of that comes from your upbringing. I don't want to go into the deep, all that. Maybe it comes from your first job or your second job. But these rules are not necessarily true. Your values will stay the same, but these rules are the ones that you might want to evaluate. I'll give you the recipe how to, but I highly recommend you do this with a coach because you will get way more value because this requires a second set of eyes to help you challenge. For each value, if you want to get the rules, you can ask, in order to experience X, let's say respect, or in order for you to experience that one of your values is doing well, right? In order to experience that I'm doing well, I need to blank. Or I cannot blank. Those two are the two questions you can ask to get from values to beliefs. Interesting thing is, I've seen people, when they wrote it down, immediately go, so their value was do things well, right? Perform, like go all in, those type of values, like performance, right? It's really important. And then I saw, in order to perform, I need to, and I saw people write down, do everything myself. And the moment you write that down, you're like, oh no. Oh, curse word, curse word. That is true. I do this, but it's not a good rule. What a coach can do is help you reset that, but I don't want to dive into that in this video because it's going to be too long. What I want to go next is all of these values, even though those determine the differences, roll up to 6 big drivers of human behavior. I promise to give you those. Here they are. First, we want to know what's going to happen next. Let's call that we want stability, knowing what's going to happen next. Second, we want to have different things in our life. If you only know what's going to happen next and you do the one same thing, everyone on planet Earth will be bored. So you want variety. That's the second one, second driver. Third is growth. It's really important to us to experience that we're growing. Physically, mentally, spiritually, every piece we would like to experience growth. Everyone likes to become better, right? After that, after growth, we have status. We want to feel that we matter. It is that you are seen as important or that you experience yourself as important. Now, yes, this can expose a lot of ego steered behavior, but there's also the status things about I want to have integrity. That can also give you status, right? So status is how you experience it, not necessarily what others give you. That's a big hint. A lot of people are seeking status outside, but you give yourself status. Then there is connection. We all want to feel connected, even though it differs from person to person. How an introvert would achieve that, it's very different than how an extrovert would achieve that. And even within those, you have huge differences. And then last, there is giving. All of those give you pretty good feeling. What I would like you to do to have something measurable is knowing your values. By the way, fun thing to do is for each value see, oh, hey, they roll up to all of these needs. With the values, you learned that you are your own human. You have a specific order on things that you find important. But they all roll up to an experience of stability, variety, growth, status, connection, and giving. Yes? You can give yourself a number on each of those. How well you perceive that to go for you. It's your own subjective scale. Fun thing is, one person's skill can be very close, another can be very wide, some can be there, some can be there. What does that mean? Some people for stability want to know, I have job security for however far I can look into the future. And for some people, stability is, I can make it this month, right? Not everyone has the same need for stability. Same for growth. Some people experience growth because they just talk to this one friend that gives them some really good reflections every year. And others want to keep reading something every month, learning, going all in. It is a subjective skill. But there is an experience that you have. And I would want to ask you to 46, just write them down for yourself and ask yourself, if I were to give myself a number with 1 being, this experience is terrible, and 10 being, this experience is perfect, what number would I give it? If you do that on all 6, you'll get a pretty good hint on what you could work on for the next year. It will tell you immediately. I have seen this, by the way, is also a great predictor of your team leaving, yes or no. I've done this multiple times for different companies. When you measure team members on this and just ask them to do exactly this, if they have 3 5s or lower, they will leave that company very soon. So I just want to share with you how big of a driver this is. Now, if you give yourself a number, then there might be a couple of things happening. 1, everything is really bad. Then maybe you're a little too high on your expectations, right? I don't see it very often, but maybe if everything is really bad, I would tell you a very rigid thing. It is, you are not in a Nazi concentration camp. That is one thing to be grateful for. I want to recommend deeply and warmly to read Viktor Frankl's Man's Search for Meaning. It will give you a lot to feel less low on this. It's okay to have a couple low, but if all are low, there might be something off with your calibration. And I hope that this book will help improve your happiness overall. If all of them are pretty high, 8s and 9s and 7s at the minimum, I recommend you raise your bar. Of the many people that I do this with, let's say 1 in 30 will just give me 9s and 8s. And those are the people that have no incentive to improve. Because improving is changing, so maybe one of these things will go down, which is painful, not fun. But if they don't see an upside, why would they? I've seen this many times when I saw like, there's somebody that has so much potential, and you would talk to them and they're like, yeah, but actually everything's going great. Where's the incentive? So that's 2 potential outcomes. Third, and that's the most common that I see, you have a couple that are great and 1 or 2 that are or bad. Those are your hints. You can work on that. You can ask yourself, what would a 10 look like? That's it for now. I think we're already at there you go, 20-ish minutes. I hope that this helps you reflect. In the medium to long term, I will have a goal setting exercise on groupeffort.nl/goals. If you want to make sure that you don't miss that going live, go and subscribe to our newsletter, groupeffort.nl/newsletter, and I'll keep you up to date on any new things that we release. Enjoy, and I hope it will bring you so much.